Next on the Bronx Journal, an interview with a Bronx animal rights activist, a discussion with two self-published authors, and a reporters' roundtable to discuss some of the issues we are covering for the next edition of the Bronx Journal.
You're watching the Bronx Journal, the BronxNet television edition of the multilingual community newspaper, published by the students and faculty of the Journalism, Communication, and Theater Department at Lehman College. In print and on television, the Bronx Journal covers the issues concerning the people of the Bronx. Do you want to know what's going on in the Bronx? Are you interested in Bronx politics, sports, and entertainment? Are you interested in Bronx personalities? Do you want to keep up with the latest business or cultural trends? In the Bronx Journal, we have the answers. Now here's your host, the Bronx Journal's editor-in-chief, Professor Miguel Perez.
The neglect of animals takes place every day. Today on the Bronx Journal, we have Jeff Ecker, Executive Director of the Project Woopee Humane Society, a nonprofit organization which focuses on educating people about the care of animals in the Bronx. Jeff, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me all about your organization. We're really interested in this subject because I know that animal abuse is something that happens everywhere, but you're really concentrating here in the Bronx. Tell me what Project Woopee is about.
Well, Project Woopee Humane Society, the word Woopee was named after a dog I had many years ago, and as he was dying in my arms, I promised him that I would name the organization after him.
So that was the name, your dog's name?
That was a dog's name originally, okay.
All right.
Officially, we've been since 1994. Unofficially, it's over 20 years in the Bronx.
Okay, and how did you get started with the humane?
What
motivated you?
I've been asked that question many times, and the only thing I can go back to remember is the first animal I saved when I was 12 years old was at Pole Park, was a German Shepherd. And from then on, which we always cared for animals at the house, but from then on I started learning more about it, getting more involved. At that time, the educational part of it wasn't really there too much. It was more just pick them up, bring them in, and I hate to say it, at that time, you couldn't adopt out, you just put them down. But things have changed quite a lot, and we're trying to make it change even more.
What do you mean by the educational part? How do you educate people? How do you go about educating us?
Well, we go out to the people, and we give them information. Information is a great tool if it's used properly. We give them care, laws, responsibility, nutrition, different events coming up, because a lot of people, they don't know, and you would think that it would be such an easy thing to know, but it isn't. There are people who don't want to know,
who own an animal but don't want to know.
They don't want to know because you can't see. We're not telling you, we're not preachers. We're giving you something, and we're trying to explain to you that for the betterment of the animal and for legal things, legal laws that are in the city as far as that, these are things that some have to be done, and some should be done. And there are people that still will not do it. But most of them, I will say, after a while, you talk to them, they sort of realize that this is the way to go.
One of the things that really struck me was this article that I was just reading about you, where they quote you, and it says that you talk to schools. Mm-hmm. And let me quote you, okay, out of this article. "I don't care if you like animals. I don't care if you hate animals. I don't care if you're allergic to animals. I only ask you to give them one thing, something everyone in this room wants: respect."
That's correct.
Basically, that's what it's all about. It's respecting animals.
That's right, because you could love an animal, you could love something, but if you don't have respect for it, I love a shirt. I love those shoes. Mm-hmm. I love chocolate. But you have to have some kind of respect for it. Otherwise,
an animal is a living thing.
It is a living thing. It can't talk as we can. It won't walk on two legs, although some do, when they say as far as that. But you have to understand the animal. And I'm not saying that you have to go overboard with the animal, But you have to have that respect because you want that respect.
Okay, so you started realizing in the Bronx that there were a lot of people who really needed some advice and some education, or you found people were abusing animals?
Oh, yeah, or abuse and
Tell me about that.
Well, abuse comes in many forms. You know, abuse comes in forms of tying an animal up for the first 4 years of its life to a radiator.
To a radiator?
In a house. Or tying it up to behind the stairs in an apartment building. Abuse comes when you come home and have an argument with your wife or a girlfriend and you start beating on the animal, starving the animal, not giving it the right nutrition. Now, sometimes abuse is by ignorance. And I always say ignorance can be changed, stupidity is to the bone. Okay? And these are different abuses. Then you get your more other abuses. There's, of course, dog fighting. There's other things as far as that.
We're going to talk about that.
But abuses, there are different levels of abuse. There are pranks. You know, it's an animal. You know, and I come to...
we're looking at some... Before you show me the pictures you have there, these are from the video that you brought in. Some of the pictures from your own show. You also have a show, a public access show.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But these are some of the pictures from your own show. And who are these animals? Tell me a little bit about them.
Well, some of them are here, some of them are different places, and they're homeless animals. Some are abused, some live down the street, some will always live on the street.
So when you find these animals, what can you do as an individual?
Well, as a person?
As a person, well, yeah, in the Bronx.
What I say is, a lot of people going to work in the morning to see an animal loose or see an animal covering somewhere waiting. Mm-hmm. I know they're not going to have the time to stop and take it somewhere. Call 311, ask for animal rescue. Give them the coordinates where the animal is, a description. At least call. And
once you make that call, what would happen to the animal?
Well, what happens is CACC, which is the Center for Animal Care and Control, which is the only organization in the Bronx, that's in New York City, that picks up animals. The ASPCA hasn't picked up animals since 1995.
Okay.
And another thing, all animal organizations in the state of New York, as in the rest of the country, most of it, are separate. We have nothing to do with anybody else. Bite-a-weed is Bite-a-weed, A is A, Humane in Manhattan is Humane. There is not one organization, everybody's under it.
There's no coordination then?
No, there is coordination.
There is?
There is an alliance.
Okay.
But no one is in charge of anybody else.
Okay.
In other words, everybody thinks Humane Society is all one. Washington Humane Society of the United States is down in Washington. American Humane is in Colorado. Humane in Manhattan. Humane in New Rochelle. Humane in the Bronx. We're all separate. We have nothing to do with each other. Your group is the one that's basically concentrating mostly in the Bronx. As far as that. There are other rescue groups, and some of them are very good. But I've took it a different way. We're looking at more, as we talk here, we're looking at more of your animals. But I've taken it a different way. Mm-hmm. And I've decided to do more on the... I want to get to the people, the animals, before the animals are in the street or before they're in a shelter and they have to be put down. See, that's the thing. I mean, of course, we're never going to get to all of them. It's impossible. And anybody that says that, they're just fooling themselves. There's always going to be a few that are going to get through. But you're right when you say, listen, all it takes is, you can't take the animal home, make a call, 311, and that's all it takes. And then you can follow up on it. You get a receipt number if you want to leave your name. If you don't want to leave your name, it's a different story. I mean, if you know something of abuse, there are numbers to call for abuse, okay? I understand if you live in a neighborhood somewhere and something's going on, there's a safety issue. But today, the way things are done, nobody has to know you called. Okay, that was my next question, because what about if your neighbor is abusing his dog and you know about it and you see it and you want to basically make a call about your neighbor? Is it confidential, your call? It can be confidential. It is confidential. It is confidential. Okay. Because if it wasn't confidential, nobody would call. It has to be confidential. Now, if you want to come and say, I called on you, yeah, well, then that's on you. I mean, it's got nothing to do. Jeff, hold on. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Jeff Ecker, and we're talking all about animal rights in the Bronx.